Hello, techies. Welcome to the Tech Times Africa podcast, where we'll bring you the latest stories on tech and startups in Africa. Catch us every Thursday at 10 a.m. WAT on techtimesafrica.podbean.com. Let us know what you think by giving us feedback in the comments or on our socials. Now, on with the show. Welcome back to the Tech Tides Africa podcast. Kelvin, speaking from Nigeria as always. How is the weather over there in Kenya, Karen?
The weather is good. It's July, so it's a bit chilly. We're also, as a people, a little more chill. Currently, no mandamano this week, I believe. So it's a very calm day for us, a calm week as well.
That's good. Going into the topics and discussions for the day, we have a number of developments from Kenya. So I would very much be looking forward to your insights on that. So let's start with a BrighterMonday report revealed that there is a skills gap problem in the current talent market. I mean, in a way, it kind of makes sense because the digital landscape is constantly growing, constantly evolving, and of course, with AI, it's just pushing the boundaries of what is possible. And so there's a skills gap between when young people finish from the university and are trying to enter the job market. This report just talks about the changing landscape, a lot of unemployed youth having skills that don't match what the market needs. So companies are looking for people with skills in AI, cybersecurity, and cloud computing. So this is a problem, but it also presents an opportunity for those that are ready to upskill. So what's your take on this report, Karen?
So I think the report makes a lot of sense. Kenya is very high in the literacy levels when it comes to African countries, and at the moment we produce about 800, according to the report that they did. We're producing approximately 800,000 new job seekers every single year. And at the moment, based on our Kenya Bureau of Statistics, 2.97 million Kenyans are unemployed. And most of them, almost half of them, are between the ages of 20 and 29. But I do think that our education system has not yet been able to match the skills that are required in the market. So there's a lot of theoretical learning in our universities, not a lot of hands-on work, not a lot of digital transformation and AI learning in the universities that we have at the moment. So what you're finding is the skills that are required in the market really do not match with the skills that are being produced by the education system, which creates a problem right there, but it also creates an opportunity, which is if you can take the time to get these skills. And I think now there are so many online classes, a lot of them are free. So somebody that is taking advantage of these short courses, somebody that is taking the time to learn the skills, especially while they're at the university. And I think that's such a big thing, that it's a shift in mindset that we need to give to our younger people. Because when we went to university, what mattered to you is the first class honors. That doesn't really matter much in the market today. I'm not saying don't get your papers, please do if you can, but I think that you have to match that with skills that are required out here. And so if you can take the time while you're in uni to get your papers, yes, but also learn a tradable skill that is tech savvy. And that doesn't mean become a coder. No, there's from digital marketing to AI, so many different things that you can be learning while you're in the university that make sure that you meet the needs of the employers on the ground. And I think that's a very important thing to think about at the moment, especially if we are going to be the center of technology, because I know that's something that Kenya is looking forward to doing. I mean, we have a national AI strategy at the moment. We want to position ourselves as a technology leader on the continent, but only 24% of our employers feel confident in the AI readiness of their teams. You can see that disconnect. So I think it's time to think about it, to start taking those courses and take the personal responsibility to make yourself ready for the world that is being created at the moment.
Yeah, you're right there. For me, I think that this applies to a lot of other countries as well, not just in Africa, but in the rest of the world. Obviously, in the West, they do a lot more to try to upgrade their curriculums. But even like I watch the news sometimes, and even they say the curriculum is behind the industry. So if they are behind the industry and they are like actively working on these things, I think we also have to think about that if we are trying to position ourselves as the future. Like they say, Africa is future, Africa is future. Well, you have to do a lot of upskilling. It was something that I was very particular about during my time in the university because I have been exposed to the internet for a very long time. I have known about digital, just the entire internet landscape. I have known about that for a long time. So even while I was in university, it was very important for me to upskill and learn a lot because I could see the news, I could see how the landscape was changing. There were a lot of first class graduates that were not getting any jobs. So even though I wanted to work hard academically, I was like, even if they started to employ every first class graduate, there are tons of first class graduates that are already out there before me. So wouldn't they like to start from those people and then gradually work their way up? So with that thinking, I kind of allowed academics suffer. It was a gamble that I took. I allowed academics suffer, so I could upskill and learn digital skills like programming and a lot. So definitely something that creates an opportunity. Obviously, the moment you have these skills, there are just a number of places from fintech to e-commerce. Obviously, seeing places like renewable energy pick up a lot of steam. There are just a lot of areas for you to apply yourself. So
Yes, absolutely. I think I was watching this somewhere earlier this year, and one of the trends that was being anticipated was that companies will have to start doing trainings themselves to upskill their staff into some of this technology because the manner in which it is moving is just too fast. And I think the days of hiring someone who's already ready for the job may be slowing down, and a lot of companies might find themselves employing someone and then training them for that particular job. Now, obviously, that creates a lot of risks for the company because you're going to spend a lot of time and money on your staff, and you're hoping that you can retain them long enough for it to be a return on investment, which is a challenge with the generation that we have at the moment, which is so aware of its rights and its capacity to move, as opposed to the generation we had before that just wanted job security and they were willing to stay for years and retire in one space. We're seeing people, myself included, who prefer more freedom. We want to be able to move around. And so that's a conundrum for companies and for startups, I believe, where you might have to train these people, but then you have to figure out a way to ensure retention. Moving forward, one of my favorite topics, energy. The Eskom Group, which is a South African state owned power utility, is looking for opportunities to support Bitcoin mining, artificial intelligence, and data centers for its future growth. They are realizing that there's a lot of competition that is coming in with self generation, which I believe is the future of power, will be self generation and independent power producers. I think we're going to start seeing a slowdown of what we have currently, which is governments being the main producers of energy in a country. And so there's a monopoly there. For us, it's Kenya Power Limited. I don't know what is there for South Africa and Nigeria, but you'll find that the main, I believe it's Eskom, I'm not sure, but you'll find that the main producers of electricity are government led. But we're going to see in the future a lot of self generation and a lot of independent power producers as we go into green energy, windmills and solar plants. We're going to see a lot of that. And what Eskom is realizing is that this is great for load shedding, which I believe is a big concern for many large energy producers, where demand and supply just kind of creates a huge load on your power plants. But at the same time, it's a concern for long term profitability because you will find that more and more people will be able to produce energy for themselves, or we'll find independent power plants that are more reliable and probably more affordable, which is something that I myself am trying to get into. So they are trying to see how they can reinvent the business and use the infrastructure that they already have to support Bitcoin mining and AI and data centers, which are huge energy consumers.
Yeah, so I find it interesting that they are already spotting this trend, like you said. The reason they are looking for more ways to, I guess, reinvent the business model is because they can see this trend. More people are beginning to produce their electricity through renewables, and it's definitely a trend that would continue to pick up steam. So very, I guess, early on, they are thinking about what can they do. A motivation, I guess, they have is the massive debt that they have at the moment that goes into hundreds of billions of rands. They have to think about a way to generate some money. So they are looking at Bitcoin mining. Obviously, those that are into Bitcoin are constantly mining bitcoins and obviously having a source of electricity to be able to run your bitcoin mining operations would be good. But at the same time, you have to also think about keeping the cost of electricity down so that the bitcoin mining is profitable. Another trend we've noticed on the podcast and we have talked about extensively is data centers. We are seeing these big telecoms like Safaricom and MTN trying to create data centers in different parts of Africa, and they are targeting artificial intelligence and creating the infrastructure for cloud computing that is also picking up steam. So they are looking at these areas as a way of alternative source of income down the line as the demand for electricity continues to reduce and they try to solve this massive debt problem. So it would be very interesting to see how this develops, because if they don't tackle this problem early enough, you could see a lot of problems for them down the line. Does the company go down? Does someone else need to acquire them to take on these debts and find a solution? So yeah, they do need to figure it out, and I look forward to that. But beyond that, I think the other interesting element of the story is the growing independent power plants.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're talking about using surplus energy during off peak hours. However, I believe South Africa is quite plagued with load shedding and they have a problem with supply of electricity. If I am not wrong, it would be something that we would need to research. But if you're still not able to fully supply the energy that is required for your country, I believe that the main reason why they are going in this direction, this strategic direction, is simply what you said, to clear up the debts. Because I do believe that there's still quite a bit of work that needs to be done in terms of making electricity reliable in the country.
That makes sense. I guess it's something that I'll just keep an eye out on. Moving forward, Kenya's cyber threat incidents surged to 2.54 billion in just the first quarter of this year. I saw the number and I thought it was money, like currency, but then it's like different incident reports for cyber threats. And I don't know what the average previously was, but the report says it's a 201 increase from the previous quarter. And I mean, it's something that we have talked about a lot on the podcast, where there is a growing cybersecurity threat in Africa as a whole. We are seeing a lot of these incident reports almost every week. And the Kenyan government is intensifying efforts to combat cyber threats. Private stakeholders like banks are also increasing their investment in cybersecurity solutions and experts that can tackle these problems. I guess one thing I'm curious about is it just that there is just more reporting on the incidents now that makes it seem like it's a lot larger, or is this how it has always been?
I was shocked to see that in 2023, Kenya lost 83 million, and that was right after Nigeria, which lost 1.8 billion to cybercrime, which is a crazy amount. And I think that deeply affects, it has some serious economic consequences. Because, first of all, creating the right cybersecurity environment, ensuring you have the right measures, the right tools, takes a lot of money. And cybersecurity professionals are very expensive and very rare. They're not many. So that in itself is a challenge. And then the potential losses that come from data breaches, erosion of customer trust. For example, you're in a bank that is constantly being hit. You're not going to stay there because you're afraid for your money. If you're using a cab, for example, there was at some point a bus service that was in Kenya where you would book the bus online and it would pick you, and it was such a beautiful service, and I was a part of it, and it was breached, it was attacked, and it took me aback, and I actually deleted my app and my profile because they would now have access to, number one, my card was attached to the app, so they could just charge me directly. My phone number was on it, so consumer trust is lost in that space. Generally, everything to do with cybersecurity is quite high in terms of expense, and being attacked is even more expensive. So it's a very heavy space to look at. Now, in terms of whether these attacks are now being more reported or whether they're just increasing, I think it's both. I think we're seeing a lot more reporting happening, but I also think that the space, because Africa is under digital transformation, so more and more companies are coming online, more and more people are coming online, which wasn't there previously. The more we're embracing digital transformation, the more we're increasing the space for vulnerabilities that attackers can take advantage of. But at the same time, we're also seeing a lot more reporting as regulation for cybersecurity becomes more clear, as best practices become more clear. We're able to see more companies reporting what is happening. So I think it's both and.
Yeah, you're right about that. One thing we have talked about on the podcast is the opportunities in cybersecurity. Like you said, there are not too many experts in this area, so it's definitely one that's going by the skills gap and thinking about opportunities that are out there in current market. If I was starting all over now, definitely cybersecurity will be top of my list of skills that I would like to acquire. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in this area, and more people need to start to think about acquiring the skills for cybersecurity. So we would see definitely how it goes. Maybe someone starts a community around cybersecurity that would churn out a lot more talent in this area, or maybe it would be companies themselves doing internal training, like you mentioned earlier. Still on the digital landscape, Egypt has completed the landing of two subsea cables. So, for those that are not too familiar, subsea cables are these massive cables are laid at the bottom of the sea, and they are basically what takes your information from one point of the internet to another. Somehow, we are all connected through these cables. And Egypt has just landed two, thanks to Telecom Egypt, one of the biggest telecom companies in Egypt, in partnership with Subcom. This cable is meant to connect different points across Africa, Asia, and Europe. What this means for these areas is faster internet. As always, this cable is supposed to be able to transfer 126 terabytes per second. That's a very crazy number to think about. Of course, it's strategically located at Egypt, which is like the entry point into Africa by sea. And hopefully, it leads to more reliable internet connectivity. And for Egypt, it would boost the digital economy there. So, as we've talked about just previously, there is more connectivity, more people are coming to the internet now, and we are getting even more connections with a number of these subsea cables. I know there are about two that have landed in both Nigeria and one other African country in the last 2 years. So the continent is just expanding and the digital space is increasing. So I am very, very excited about the future.
Yeah, this is really exciting news. The cables are connecting three continents: Africa, Europe, Asia, and they're going from Singapore to France to Egypt, which is really cool because I do think that there's a lot more business happening between these three continents. And then the data capacity that it's going to boost in Egypt is going to have an effect on East Africa and North Africa as well. So we're going to see those two spaces, East and North Africa, opening up even more in terms of digital opportunities and high speed internet and better communications across continents. So I think we're opening up even more. We're beginning to see the global village that we used to talk about when we were in primary school becoming even more of a reality. And I think it's going to make trade easier among these continents. It's going to make human resource export even easier for Africa, because right now we're becoming one of the biggest exporters of skill and human resources. So really exciting to see, and looking forward to seeing how it affects not just Egypt, but the region as a whole, and how it affects the economy and the innovations that happen as a result of this capacity increase. So, moving forward on trade and expansion, we are seeing Temu has launched a warehouse in South Africa. Temu, of course, is an e-commerce store that is China-based, and they have been importing directly from China. And they have created quite a bit of a move with their aggressive marketing, which has included very low prices and massive online marketing budgets to bring in more and more clientele. And so they have created their first local warehouse. They're hoping to cut their delivery time of under 2 days to include next day delivery. And this, I think, speaks to where e commerce is going in Africa. I was watching something somewhere, and the lady she's a businesswoman in Africa, and she was saying that in the next few years, 1 in every 5 shoppers online will be African. And I think we're seeing companies like Jumia and Temu start to lay the groundwork to take advantage of that. So really interesting to see them start to take a more serious, I think this shows serious intent to stay in the African continent.
It's like you said, this is Temu pretty much planting a flag in Africa. Two things I found curious with this story is that they have now planted a physical location in Africa. We saw throughout last year there was a lot of aggressive marketing with Temu in Africa, in social media spaces, on YouTube. I don't watch TV, so I don't know whether those ads got to TV. But even till now, I still pretty much every day that I'm on YouTube, I see a Temu ad or two. Now they are planting a physical location. So that's the first thing that I thought was curious. The second thing that I thought was curious was that they are planting the flag in an African country that we just saw Jumia leave last year. Jumia previously operated in South Africa, but last year, as they turned their attention to profitability and reducing a lot of their debt, South Africa was one of the countries they left, as well as Tunisia and a couple of other countries. This is definitely a space that I am very curious about. I do have a dog in this fight. Jumia is my dog in this fight. So I am very, very interesting to see some of the strategies that Temu uses as they continue to expand in Africa. I don't think this would be the only physical location they would build. I'm interested in seeing what they do as they continue to make further efforts in the continent. But e-commerce is a space that is very exciting, especially in Africa. There are a lot of opportunities as long as you can keep on playing the long game. It's definitely a space worth investing in. Now there's another massive player on the board. We'll see how this space evolves.
Yeah, absolutely. Very curious, actually, that they are starting with a market that a long-term player is exiting. So let's wait and see what happens. I did see that there are some regulations that are coming into the country that actually might make business a little bit more difficult for Temu. So let's wait and see how that goes. Definitely something to look out for. And obviously, we're going to do that, seeing that you are a major supporter of this space with someone that you support to the death. So let's see how let's see how they fare on, because I do think that perhaps one of the reasons that Jumia was leaving was some of these regulations that have been coming into the South African country. So let's wait and see.
Yeah. We'll wrap up with, again, going back to Kenya. I think we've talked about Kenya a lot in this episode. Um, Kenyan logistics software startup Leta has expanded into Ghana following its $5 million seed fund raised in March of this year. And it just adds to a growing list of countries it operates in. So that's Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mauritius, and now Ghana. And logistics is a space that, I mean, we have talked about it a number of times on the podcast. It's quite hard to figure out because we don't have like a fully structured addressing system in a lot of African countries. So it's challenging finding the best routes to deliver packages, but there are a number of companies and startups that are operating in this space trying to figure out the solutions. Obviously, it works hand in hand with e-commerce a lot of the time. So this is another player on the board and entering a market like Ghana that we haven't gotten to talk much about Ghana on the podcast, but it's definitely one of those countries outside of the big four that you think about when you think about startups in Africa. I know Chowdeck, the food delivery service, they are one of the big players now in Nigeria. They recently expanded into Ghana as well. We'll see how it goes. Leta is building AI software solutions to help optimize delivery routes. Maybe AI would play a big factor in how logistic companies are eventually able to figure out delivery routes in Africa. One of the applications we saw of AI, I think, on the last podcast was with Rwandan health care sector, where they were using the Google Maps data sets to aggregate areas of population concentration so they could now determine where to build healthcare facilities. So maybe AI does play a massive role in figuring out logistics in Africa. But yeah, I look forward to what they are doing.
Finally, some good news from Kenya. It's been dark for us for a
About
while.
time.
It's been dark for a minute. Finally, one of our startups is moving. It's been very discouraging to be here talking about Nigerian startups that are making moves, and I'm really glad that we have a Kenyan startup that's making moves, and especially in a space that we have found to be very challenging in Africa, logistics. So I'm super proud and super excited about this company, and I'm going to start following it because I'm now a fan. I do love what they're using AI for, and it's something we've spoken about before, about making sure that AI actually solves local problems for the African market. And they optimize delivery routes, they manage fleet operations, and they cut transport costs for companies. Now, those are major issues for most companies that especially handle retail and wholesale spaces. So one of the things that I have noticed about them is they're very strategic in the moves that they make and in the companies that they partner with. So if you look at Kenya, for example, they are partnering with some of the biggest names in the country, names like KFC, East African Breweries Limited, which has major need for logistics, delivering alcohol and beer across the country and I think across borders. Wells Fargo Courier, which offers courier services, Gilani's, which is a major wholesale player in spaces like Nakuru, where I live. Then when it entered Ghana, you can see that it's entering anchored by a very big brand, Simbisa Brands Limited, which is a quick service restaurant that has 600 outlets across 11 countries. So I think they're being very strategic with the clients that they are pursuing. And I think that's part of the reason why they are succeeding. They're very clear on the problems that they're solving. They're also very clear on the clients that they are pursuing. And I think that's a space where a lot of us sometimes mess up. And I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of logistics companies fail, because the manner in which they target their clients might not be the best. And I think logistics in Africa, especially when you go for small businesses, is going to be hard to tackle because they can't afford really great products at the moment. And then the terrain that is Africa is really difficult to operate on a budget. So I do think that's, in my opinion, one of the reasons why we're seeing them succeed. I'm really glad that they were able to raise money, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where they go and moving from hardware to just software led solutions. So a really cool move, really excited about it. Looking forward to seeing if they will be getting into other countries with this Simbisa Brands client, because they're in 11 countries. So looking to see if they will be expanding their service to those other countries. Yep.
Well, I'm happy for you and I'm happy for Kenyan startups.
Finally.
Finally. And one point that you just touched on is the players they are partnering with. They are partnering with very established companies, established brands. And that speaks to something that we heard from the CEO of Vind that we had on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, where he said, as a startup, try to partner with established brands because they have a lot more footing in the market and they are better anchor points than trying to partner with other startups that are still trying to figure things out. So this definitely speaks to Leta doing that. And like you said, it has a hand in how they are able to move so quickly and scale so quickly, and seems they are efficient about how they move around. So it's definitely a startup to keep an eye out for in this logistics space. So I look forward to seeing what they do in the future. I believe we can leave it there. It was a good conversation, and Karen finally got a win from Kenyan startups. So we can call it a wrap there. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Tech Tides Africa podcast. Remember, leave a comment or share with your friends. We'll see you next Thursday at the same time and place you get your podcast. Until then, stay well.